Yes, sir. We're officially back at it. Boog Nice coming at you with a quickie overview. So as promised, I'm starting to go through things, open up things, and get things on the table. A couple weeks ago, I got the full Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure wave. I was able to open them, assemble Bonebreaker. Just want to give you my quick overview, my thoughts on the individual figures from the wave as well as the Build-A-Figure and where Hasbro needs to go in this new era of price increases with less accessories. All right, let's do it.
No scalper. You a scalper? Then fuck out shit. This one's for them real collectors. That's army building and posing figures. Marvel Legends, imports, mini matey, I'm fucking with them. Hype beast, we know about you. Stay buying figs, don't know about it.
So the Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure wave features 7 figures in total. You need 6 of the 7 figures to complete the Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure. Wolverine does not come with a Build-A-Figure part. So Hot Claws Wolverine, nothing really much to write home about with this figure. Is what you would expect. It's a tried and tested buck for Wolverine. It's a solid figure overall, but there's going to be a reoccurring theme here in terms of lack of accessories. I do appreciate that the extra head sculpt was included, but they could have kept the extra head sculpt and just gave us an additional set of fists and or open hands with the claws retracted. And if you want to keep it all the way real, I would have preferred the Astonishing X-Men look for Wolverine here. At some point, I hope we do get the full Astonishing X-Men team. I mean, that comic run is so iconic, something I've talked about for many years on this channel. Being that this one does not come with the Build-A-Figure part, it's one that you may want to buy 2 of, so you can have one with the claws extended and then remove the claws and have one with the claws retracted. Solid figure overall, but is it worth the $25, $26 price tag with just the additional head and no Build-A-Figure part? Up next is Siren, first time figure in the Life of the Marvel Legends line. They're utilizing a new female buck here. The overall figure looks very nice. My particular version does have something wonky going on with the hinge on the right foot. She is packed in with a Build-A-Figure part, one of the sides of the lower portion of the tank for Bonebreaker, and she's a very nice looking figure. Pinless joints, might I add. But yeah, they screwed up here with the windswept hair and the neutral face when they should have had an additional head that had the windswept hair and an open sort of screaming face sculpt. She needed 2 head sculpts. Now I understand that she's packed in with a Build-A-Figure part, a large portion of this Build-A-Figure. She also did have 2 additional open hands, but again, at the higher price tag, they've got to start packing in more with these figures. I don't know what the odds are of us seeing another Siren anytime soon, but hopefully that will be the case and they will be able to rectify this. Classic Havok, he too is packed in with a Build-A-Figure part. The barrels to tack on to the lower portion of Bonebreaker's tank. I'll talk about those barrels more later. Been a long time since we had a classic look for Havok. I think it was back in the Toy Biz days in the Giant Man Build-A-Figure wave, if I'm not mistaken. This is a solid figure. I mean, he's pretty much all black. It's a good head sculpt. It's a good buck for the character. But hey, this guy needed an additional head sculpt as well. Angry, screaming, open mouth. But they definitely threw us for a loop with the accessories for him. They're big, they're gaudy. You can get some nice light piping through them. This was a pleasant surprise. Now, being that Havok is in all black, there are other characters that you can use to swap hands and give him some different hands. But again, at the higher price tag, give us another head sculpt. Up next is Vulcan. He's packed in with the upper torso to complete the Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure. This is one I was really looking forward to. Brand new buck here. This is going to be their sort of medium build for male characters moving forward. I love this buck. It's very, very nice. He was packed in with a couple of interchangeable hands. No additional head. Again, we need additional head sculpts for these characters. I have seen some people swap on, what's my man's name from the Eternals wave? Superman, basically. Swap on that head on Vulcan. You can also swap his hands out with other characters like Electro or Johnny Storm to kind of represent him utilizing his power set. Vulcan is a very powerful character, by the way, part of an original X-Men crew where another one of his team members is in this wave. Hopefully at some point we will get the 2 female characters from that original crew. I've seen some people say that this buck seems a little large for Vulcan. I don't know. Depends on the artist. But I think if it's just one character that you pick up out of this wave, it should be Vulcan. It's a pretty basic design for his costume. Pretty spot on to his comic book counterpart. Again, my only gripe would be that he probably should have had more hands and an additional head. Up next is Maggot. This is not one that I thought I would see from the Hasbro Marvel Legends team, but I hope it opens up the possibilities for more characters from that era. And this figure came out really nice, but again, just needs more. An additional angry head sculpt, some additional hands, being that his hands are so unique with the color and the fingerless gloves. Like I always say, heads and hands make the figures, and that's how you get the most playability out of them. That's how you take the most pictures. And hey, if Hasbro's going to dabble in soft goods, then do it, and do it to death. Wouldn't it have been cool if his jacket was actually soft goods and you could remove it and have more playability and more posability out of this figure? I think he lacks a little paint detailing, but I love the buck that they use for him. I think it's a great representation of his look from the comic books. Again, my gripe is that he didn't have an additional head or hands, although he was packed in with a Build-A-Figure part, the head and the weapon for Bonebreaker. Darwin is packed in with the other tread, the other side of the lower portion of Bonebreaker's tank. This is one that I've actually wanted for a while, but I'm not really happy with the buck that they chose. Now, don't get me wrong, it's articulated, but it's an older, sort of outdated buck. They're moving forward with the age of the pinless joints. It would have been nice to get a pinless, highly articulated buck for Darwin. And he's packed in with nothing to represent his power set. What they could have used to represent his power set, I don't know. But I mean, for the higher price tag, you got to get crafty. You got to be innovative. You got to think outside the box. I do like the head sculpt. I like the hands. They're very unique, but I think he needed some different hand sculpts. As I mentioned, he is part of an original X-Men team that had a secret mission on the island of Krakoa back in the days. Darwin can be utilized in that sort of classic era or even in a modern era. I've talked about the whole Uncanny X-Men run in which a special team that Professor X put together was going up against Vulcan, who's also in this wave. So, you know, they had some time together where they were friends, and then they had some times together where they were foes. But yeah, I really wish they would have used a different buck for Darwin here. A little disappointed in this one. And finally, Sabretooth, who's packed in with some odds and ends to complete the Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure, a little latch on the back of the lower portion of the tank, some type of engine or compressor, I don't really know what that is, and the very lower portion that you would use to attach his upper torso to the two halves of the treads. But yeah, this is another one that didn't come out so great. Head sculpt from Paul Hardin, which I saw the unpainted versions of. I think maybe the factory paint just didn't really do this justice, but I also don't really care for this particular body mold. He didn't have any additional hands. Just the expression in general on the head sculpt looks a little goofy. It's a lot better in hand. I know those first initial pictures that we saw of this guy, everybody was poking fun at this figure. Again, it is a lot better in hand, but why can't the Marvel Legends team nail Sabretooth in any capacity and any look for him? Now, this is supposed to be a more sort of classic look for him where he's a little more slender, muscular, not like the hulking, bulky versions that we see in some of the modern takes on him. But I really just don't like this figure. Now, obviously, you'll need him if you want to complete the Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure. Shout out to my man Adam Rodriguez. I see him kind of kit bashing parts from this figure and trying to put together a better version of Sabretooth, utilizing some parts from the Hercules buck. And this looks really interesting. I'd like to see the finished product. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid wave, but again, at the higher price tag, $25, almost $30 in Canada and other places, Marvel Legends must pack in more heads, hands, and accessories to justify this increase in the price and to keep them ahead of the pack and keep them in a position where they are consistently the best overall toy line every year. I don't know that that's going to happen this year. So that brings us to the Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure, which I like a lot. One of the better modern Build-A-Figures from Hasbro. A first-timer in the life of the Marvel Legends line, an X-Men themed villain. You know I love the X-Men. And he gets us closer to completing a classic team, the Reavers. The concept of the Build-A-Figure and how one acquires a Build-A-Figure is and probably always will be sound. In this instance, you buy 6 figures and essentially get 1 free. Even with the price increase, in my humble opinion, this Build-A-Figure is worth buying the 6 figures needed to complete him. He looks great. He has some good accessories, but of course, he's not without a few flaws. The treads, while they are rubber and feel good to the touch, I was kind of bummed out to realize they don't move. You cannot actually roll Bonebreaker at all. That's whack. Again, the figure looks great overall, but I'd be remiss to not mention the lack of paint detailing, something Hasbro struggles with, and one of the only things the Toy Biz offerings have over Hasbro. These barrels look so bare. Now, they are removable, that's cool, and sure, you could easily dry brush them, and the entire lower portion of the figure for that matter, but why should you have to? He has good articulation in his torso, he can rotate, he has a good ab crunch, double jointed elbows, hinge and swivels on his wrists. The gauntlets are separate parts too, just to be be clear. 2 sets of interchangeable hands, a good-looking, not purple weapon that has a peg hole on the barrel, which allows you to insert the muzzle flare accessories we've received with previous figures, as well as the smoke effect. Great head and neck articulation, a great head sculpt with removable shades, which I thought was a really nice touch, and they actually peg in on both sides of his head, so they are kind of unique to this figure, but you can fudge them on others. Once again, my issues with the figure is the lack of accessories that would really bolster the playability with the figure. My channel, my reviews, my very being within the hobby is centered around displaying, taking videos and pictures of the figures, and being able to do that and do it with lots of options harbors on heads, hands, and accessories. So while this head sculpt is dope, we also needed an additional neutral head sculpt. Some jazz hands would have been nice too. Displaying and doing it well is not only about dynamic action scenes. A great display artist can captivate an audience without dynamism, but to do that, we need neutral head sculpts at our disposal. I think 2 head sculpts for any Build-A-Figure should be mandatory, as should at least 2 sets of hands, which they did at least get right here. I think there were a few missed opportunities with this guy. How about some grenades? How about muzzle flares and simulated rockets launching from the gun on the front of the tank and what appears to be a rocket launcher on the side? How about another set of barrels? Hasbro, you gotta go all out in 2023. Still, I do think this is a solid wave and a great Build-A-Figure you shouldn't pass up on, especially if you favor the X-Men. All right, Dwight, we ready for Pretty Boy. And that's it. Thanks for hanging out. As always, rate, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell down there. And until next time, peace.
I'm in the game, I'm grinding, I got to play 24 hours in a day, 7 days out the week, I never sleep. I'm on my grizzly bear, 52 weeks out the year.